Many of us have heard of the infamous California drought for a while now, and that the state of California is running out of water. What exactly is a drought? A drought is a period of drier than normal conditions that result in a water-related problem. If there is a less than normal rainfall for an extended amount of time, it can result in a decline in water levels of lakes, rivers, streams, and reservoirs, which will become a drought. California has had a history of droughts, but the current drought that began in 2011 has been its most severe. It is currently entering its sixth year of this drought, and California is only getting drier. The effects of a drought can range from mild to severe consequences. A short-term consequence includes the rise of groundwater levels, and if water is pumped faster than an aquifer can recharge from precipitation, there will be a decrease in water availability and a reduction in groundwater quality. Long-term drought consequences of excessive groundwater and aquifer pumping, or even seawater intrusion, or seawater entering the aquifer system. Drought has affected multiple important industries as well. 6 industries affected by the drought are agriculture, food processing, semiconductors, energy, tourism and leisure, and water utilities. With California being the largest agriculture producer of any state, it uses 80% of the state's water. It will result in California cutting down the crops they choose to grow and also increasing the prices of certain crops such as almonds and walnuts that require a large quantity of water to successfully grow. Governor of California Jerry Brown is requiring many cities and towns in California to reduce their water consumption by 25%, and those who do not comply to this will be fined up to $500 a day.
So I'd say the California drought has affected me and my family back in California just based on how much water we use. We're a lot more cautious about how much water we use. I personally love to take long showers, and now I have to cut my showers down to like 5 minutes or do the military style just to save water. And if we go over our water limit use, then we're going to get charged like $500, and we don't really want to pay $500. So it's kind of hard, especially for people of lower income.
My family's very aware of it. My dad is crazy. He uses the smallest trickle of water to clean dishes. So none of them really seem like, none of the ways in which my family and my lifestyle has changed. None of them are very serious or very directed. I think it's also interesting how California, the drought has kind of brought Californians together, how there's this kind of larger cause to fight for. But I hear that in like some other areas of California, because I'm from the San Francisco area, where the drought isn't as apparent. We don't rely so much on water from aqueducts and stuff like that. But here in Southern California, it's a lot more intense with fine watering your lawn too much. So in Northern California, it's nothing like that. There aren't any like serious, there's no serious action taken against non-drought conscious behavior.
I believe that agriculture is going to actually be most affected just because they have to also conserve water, and if you don't have water, how are you supposed to grow plants and crops? So I think just the entire California agriculture industry will be impacted severely.
I heard that there's something like a 25% decrease in water allowed to farmers for growing their crops. And that seems pretty significant. Like, I would imagine that would translate to something like a 25% decrease in crop output, which I think would affect that industry and farmers' lives pretty greatly. I would say farming would be the most negatively affected, and drought-conscious behavior technology companies.
I think the industry that's been most affected is probably the farming industry, because obviously the drought limits kind of water use on that, which kind of harms or decreases kind of crop production, which is not only bad for California as a state, but also the country as a whole, because we supply a lot of the country's produce. If you're driving through the Central Valley, it used to be all green, and now it's kind of all brown, which is a little sad.
So back home I actually live in the Beverly Hills area, and they have little islands in between a lot of the streets that are full of grass. And normally they are actually fully watered and green, and the city has actually stopped watering them, and so just because they really need to conserve water. For me personally, when I'm back home and my family, we all have agreed to take shorter showers, so that's what we do to conserve water, and we honestly just try our best.
Parents are watering their garden less often, and my dad checks for leaks in the watering system, something he probably hasn't done for decades. And my brother, he is the water conscious person of our family. He reuses all of his shower water. He waters his garden with his dishwasher water. I think he even uses his clothing washer water in his garden as well.
There's kind of limits on days that you can water your lawn and all that, so I think it's kind of I think for us it's Thursdays. You can water every other day of the week. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to at least limit it. And I know DWP has given out kind of low flow shower heads and sink nozzles so that you can kind of decrease water use when you're using the sink or the shower and stuff like that. In terms of what I've done personally, at my house we take shorter showers, or we try to limit it to 5 to 10 minutes. We try to limit our AC and heater use. We try to only use the dishwasher. We can kind of fill it up so that it's more efficient and effective, I guess. And also we have a bucket in our sink that we use to kind of, if we're just rinsing something, and kind of reclaim that water, and we can use it to water the plants outside.
At the rate that we're going, I think if more people start to conserve water, the drought could get better, and if by some miracle we happen to get a lot of rain, I think it could get better. But if people continue acting as they are and wasting water, then I think it will get worse. And if we also don't get any more rain, I think it could get worse.
I'm generally of the belief that it'll get better. So I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think this drought represents a large swing in the average rainfall in California. So I think that this is more of a short-term minimum. But so I think it'll get better. But in the long term, like a century, hard for me to say. I wouldn't be surprised if California was a much drier place. I wouldn't be surprised if it went back to how it normally was. So I don't really know. I'm not really informed on those kinds of matters.
I feel like it's really dependent on kind of how active we are kind of as a whole with the world and everything, and getting and being environmentally friendly and recycling and limiting water use and all that stuff. That'll kind of depend, I think the future of California and the drought kind of will depend on that. So, because I feel like it's very tied in with all the global warming crisis and all that, changing weather patterns and whatnot. So I feel like until that kind of starts to change, we're kind of potentially stuck in it. But who knows?
Right now, 100% of California faces severe drought. This is the San Luis Reservoir near Fresno.
You're looking at the largest off-stream reservoir in the United States, and it should be twice as full at this date and time.
So far this year, California's had only 20% of its normal rainfall, and the state's snowpack, another crucial water source, is only 18%. California produces 90% of the nation's tomatoes, 95% of its broccoli, and 99% of its almonds. That's what Bill Dietrich farms here in Fresno County. The lack of water also means fire. California officials are bracing for a summer that could be the worst ever. Governor Jerry Brown has called on Californians to lessen water usage by 20%, but so far there's only been a 5% reduction.
I think of the tens of thousands of people that are without sanitation and indoor plumbing because there's not enough water, and they like turn off water to certain districts, which sucks for the people living there. I watched a video in one of my classes of this like 13-year-old girl who didn't have running water in her house, and so it like really affected her socially because people at school would say that she smelled and stuff, which was really sad.
Okay. So I think the drought in California is a really serious problem that hasn't gained enough attention, mainly because a lot of unsustainable sources are being used, like groundwater and aquifers, which obviously won't last in the long run. So there needs to be more media and public policy attention towards it.
Yeah, and I think it's a problem that's going to take many years to fix, and I honestly don't know if we're ever really going to fix the problem as much as just come up with ways to make it less severe. And honestly, a lot of the practices and the laws that are going into place in California are things that should be followed around the country just to minimize water use.
I guess my brother lives in California, so he lives in LA, so I guess it's not as noticeable there as it is in like the more rural parts of California, where they don't have like stores where you can buy bottled water and stuff, so you don't have to rely on running water as much for like your drinking water. But I think it still affects them. Here in Massachusetts, it's not as visible of a problem because we still have like green grass.
So in terms of the drought affecting us personally, as a New Englander, it hasn't really affected me directly, but I know indirectly that prices for nuts and avocados and things that are grown in California have risen, so that's one way. And another way is when I visited California, I kind of saw the effects of the drought. Waterfalls didn't have water, rivers were dried up, so just things like that.
Well, I think again, just going back to the fact that if this can happen in California, it can happen anywhere. So just kind of seeing what they're going through, and it's kind of a trial run. So if this starts to happen in other drier places, what are we going to change? Like, what are we going to do differently than what they're doing in California? How are we going to improve and make it less severe of an impact?
Well, I think people are already making efforts, things like not watering huge lawns and like trying to just do little things to conserve water, like not flushing the toilet as often and taking shorter showers, and like turning the water off when you're washing dishes.
Probably shift their entire economy because it's very agricultural based right now, and that's very water intensive, so that may end up having to happen. There may not be enough water for residential use and for farming, so that's just my guess.
Well, and I think it also has to be the way you educate and make people aware of the problem, because most people in California know that there's a drought, but maybe they don't really know what that means for them. And really, in reality, like, I don't really know enough about how much water we actually have left, and I feel like there just needs to be more education about how we use water, where it goes, really how much we have left to use.